Well, hello, you guys. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here on a Friday night in Utah, and we've had the most amazing thunderstorms rolling through the valley, and hopefully it's clear right now. But you know how things go on the show. We're always holding our breath and making sure there's not a fire on the roof and all sorts of things. I want to thank everybody for getting into the show, into chat. Amy, Sean, Simon, Phil. Angels Are Life, all of you guys, Spank Flaps, interesting name. But, you know, you guys are the reason that I'm here, and I have loved spending my Friday nights with you. I've done this, oh my gosh, I think for 7 years, most Friday nights, and I couldn't think of a better way to just hang out, chill, talk to incredible people, and hopefully move the subject forward by promoting history, by promoting archiving the subject, and also letting you see my life and how I make some mistakes and I own them, and I show you how not to make those same mistakes. And now we have some really interesting things going on, of course, always in the American ufology scene with the Travis Taylor news that dropped via George Knapp, and there have been some articles that have been written about that, and you can definitely follow people. I put that on my Twitter page, so you can go to Erica Lukes UAP to see some of the articles about that. And again, at the end of the day, it's really important that we do question motivations. We do question if somebody is going to put something forward to the public and they're really promoting science. Why are they talking about and advancing things that haven't been proven? I just questions. I've got a lot of questions, as you know, and so I think we need to be thoughtful with regard to that. And hello, Jim. Thanks for staying up late. And Steve's Aquatic, Sparky Lady, thank you for the super sticker, and I appreciate you guys very, very much. And so I'm now, and this is going to be such a fun show. I'm so stoked. So tonight I have got Paul Carr there. Surprise.
Hi.
How are you doing? I'm so happy because to find you, and Jack Brewer's like, you've got to interview Paul because he is exceptional. He has integrity and is ethically based and has been doing some really, really great work. And so it's just a pleasure to have you here. And I want to tell people who have not heard of you a little bit about your background, which is it's impressive. It's amazing. So you are an experienced space systems engineer with a master's degree in applied physics from Johns Hopkins University. Since the early 80s, you had designed, built, tested, and flown robotic spacecraft for NASA, the U.S. Air Force, and commercial customers. In 2011, you were asked to join the Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team, an organization emphasizing ethical and methodical field investigation. Since then, you've worked on many interesting cases for API and interacted with sightings, witnesses from all over the USA and abroad. In 2013, you helped start the official API podcast, which the API case files and API conversations in 2015. In 2017, you took over as the interim director of API to keep the organization going while reaching out to the independent research community to form mutually reinforcing alliances, which is incredible. And so, I mean, hey, I could keep going, but give us a little bit more background.
Yeah, well, what I attracted me to joining into a UFO investigation field was kind of a mix of things. I was largely I suffer from a low curiosity threshold, and I was curious. I wanted to talk to people who'd seen UFOs. I've seen a few things myself over the years that I didn't have an explanation for. I still don't have an explanation for. I'm not going to overinterpret those things. It just that Some of them were pretty wildly strange to me. Um, and they don't happen very often. They happen, 10 every 10 15 years. But the uh, that plus just some curiosity about what are people like who've actually seen these things? What sort of people are they? And it turned out, you know, well, spoiler alert, most of them are just totally ordinary people who are completely sane and rational and conduct their lives without any issues, and just want to know what they saw. And um, what we found at API is that we can help them in 70-80% of the cases, maybe somewhere in that ballpark, figure out what it is they saw. And that's sort of our attitude is we're helping you figure this out. We're going to do our research and give you some information. But the experience belongs to you. The memories belong to you, not to us. And we, uh, we will write a report that will, and the report has everything in it. We take some of that out to protect privacy and then publish our reports on our website. And so there's a lot of case reports on our website, and there's many more to come. Um, and we have over the years gotten some really good cases, and that's what kept me in it. Every once in a while, about once a year, we get a case that just really motivates me and keeps me going in this area. Um, I really enjoy field investigation, and I think my partners in API, the other people like Marcia Barnhart, who's our chief of investigations, also really enjoy that for different reasons themselves. And most of us have had some experience of the phenomenon, the phenomena. We're our official URL is aerial dash phenomenon, but I think it should be phenomena because it's lots of different things, but most of which are explainable. But the I really enjoy that, and sometimes it's actually enjoyable to solve the mystery and say, yeah, we figured out what it was, and that's much.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that I think that is so incredible because to me, when I was investigating with an organization, I found that a lot of times investigators were very uh, disempowering. I mean, it's like they would, oh no, you're crazy. You didn't see this. Instead of saying, here, let me show you this app. Let me show you how to use Google Earth. Let me show you how to use Flight Radar. Let me show you all these things to empower you and make you feel good about actually getting out there, looking up and wondering what it is. And so I
Yeah,
really respect that about what you've done.
yeah, and we encourage witnesses to do that and to take as much charge as much as they can. Um, for example, last year and the year before, we were getting a lot of Starlink train cases. We know what they are. They're satellites that have they're launched together in a big stack, and they spread out slowly. And when you see them go by, if you have a nice dark sky, you will see it looks like a train of a string of pearls going by, and it's really very impressive. And we got a lot of those. And so we wanted to encourage people. You can go into this app or that app, and you can look and see for yourself if that's what it is that's going by. And lots of those. But that seems to have stopped now. People seem to know what that is now. But uh, unlike some other phenomena that, like Chinese lanterns, that continue to be, generate reports forever and ever. The so-called unsinkable rubber ducks, things that, you know,
And
you think,
so, I mean, like, yeah, with Chinese lanterns, because I have had, back when I was state director for MUFON, I mean, we had quite a few reports, and they can look very ominous, when you see them and things. But what I did is because Chinese lanterns are illegal in a lot of places, I
many
ended up
places.
calling, all the different fire departments all over the country. Okay, is this illegal? What are your restrictions? Da 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 da. So I could kind of put that through the paces that way, and that was very interesting. But we do know people like to be naughty, so.
Yeah, well, we had a case just last year in Brooklyn, New York, where it is illegal to fly Chinese lanterns, but somebody did anyway. And first time anybody's ever done anything illegal in Brooklyn, as far as we know. But you know, clearly that it's a perfect match to, you know, the winds and everything, and the appearance. And but the video that we had was a little deceptive. And when you first look at it, you say, well, that's a triangular UFO. There are three of them, so they form a triangle. But with more analysis, we could see, oh, he's zooming in. And so it makes it look like it's coming towards you, and it's really not. It's about the same distance away. We get lots of stuff like that, and you have to do the work. And this is why we lose a lot of field investigators, because they come in and they say, oh, we have to do this work on these cases that are not going to prove the existence of aliens among us,
Right.
which none of our cases do that. I'm sorry. That's just, I can go into why that is, but we've never, just luck of the draw. We've had some really weird, strange cases. I can talk about some of those if you want, but we can't, at the end of the day, we can't conclude, well, this proves, you know, somebody's theory, conjecture. Theory is too heavy a word. Guess, speculation about, you know, an alien presence or something like that. But we get, so we've had a lot of field investigators come and go because it's just too hard. And we insist on doing a really good job on all the investigations, and to the point where you're sure that you've got it identified, or you're sure you don't. So that's means turning over a lot of rocks, kissing a lot of frogs, you know, talking to a lot of people. And so that we do that. And a quality investigation takes time, and it takes, you know, I have a big stack of reports I have to write, and they go back, I think, to 2020 at least, because we don't have enough field investigators to do all you know, trained field investigators, and we insist on getting them trained well. And we don't charge any money, but we want them trained well in all the aspects of doing it. And you know, and usually we have rotten luck, like somebody gets a really crazy case where the witness is not very good at communicating, and you know, and then they get frustrated and they quit. And because we don't pay them anything, you know, they can quit whenever they want.
But I mean, I will say though that I mean, the cool thing about that is you're not, you know, I mean, you're not paying to be a state director, or you're not paying to be, you know, and like the one thing I love about, you know, watching your videos is you say, okay, this is my these are our training videos. Feel free to use them if you give us credit, and have a respectful dialogue. And I think that is so cool.
Sure. Almost all our stuff is Creative Commons. That is, anyone can use it if they give us credit. And we don't need a lot of credit. Just say, you know, just put a little notice at the end, thanks to API for letting us use their video. And or video, or training material, or our written reports, all that stuff is open to the public and can be used. What we hope to do ultimately is have a database where people can query our cases, and we rate every case by case quality, which we call that probability, but it basically is not really probability. It's case quality from 0 to 5, where 0 is a hoax, and 5 is just rock solid, everything, physical evidence. We never had a 5, by the way. 3 is about as high as we normally get. And we don't get very many 3s. The vast majority of our cases are single witness, sometimes with a video, sometimes not. It doesn't mean I want people should report to us at reportaufo.org. Should go to that website. If you don't think your case is very good, that's okay. We can figure that out quickly. But you know, if you've got some, and we, you know, we're going to need to talk to you. It's going to take about an hour of your time. We're going to have to talk to you and get our questions answered. And in some of the more complex cases, we might have to follow up and talk to you a second time, or even a third time. Um, there is one video we have it's rather long, but it summarizes. It's no, it's quite long. A case called I think it's what is it? 12-058. It's a number. It's just a number, but that it's a high strangeness case, and we had multiple interviews with this guy, and we all came away thinking this guy is totally sincere. He's telling us what he really remembers. Is he telling us what really happened? We don't know, but is he telling us what he remembers? Yes. And the and I would just refer people to that if they want to go onto our website, type in 12-058, or to our YouTube channel, and you'll get a either one will work, and you'll get a that video. And very sincere young man who had some very strange things happen to him. And but even if what you saw wasn't that strange, just some lights in the sky, we're still interested. And it, and we shouldn't be embarrassed because it might be Chinese lanterns or because it might be satellites. Just let us see it. In most cases, if we think we know what it is right away, we'll tell you, and that will be the end of that. Marcia sends a lot of those kinds of emails all the time.
And I want to just say, Marcia has done some of the interviews on the podcast, right?
She does probably most of them.
I have to say that her voice and her delivery is incredible.
Well, she did that professionally.
That does not surprise me at all.
But she was in the Air Force for a long time, and she did Air Force. Well, you can ask her what she did, but yeah, she has that kind of professional delivery, and which I lack. But yeah, in terms of she and I roughly they have something called API conversations, and I've done roughly half, she's done roughly half of those, and we're going to keep doing those, indefinitely. Those are fun. You just sit down with somebody and just talk.
I know, I love that.
And you just you let the conversation drift where it will. It's not an interview; it's just a conversation. And yeah, I've got some coming up, maybe with some people but we do like to feature people who, in some cases, who are not that well known, and not really UFO people, but people who've thought about UFOs or thought about the issues around UFOs, and have some interesting thoughts. And so, for example, Marcia interviewed Mark Rod, not Mark. She did interview Mark Rodiger.
Wow.
But it was another guy an academic, whose name I can't remember. But he was at Ohio State, and he'd written an article about UFOs, even though he's not UFO famous. And she had a really good conversation with him. And so we often look for what we call the quiet people. The quiet, especially as witnesses, quiet people tend to be better witnesses, and they're less concerned with any publicity or anything like that. They don't want that. They want just to tell their story. And so that often leads to the best investigations. Now, I got to tell you, our investigations, like I said, we get like one or two really great cases a year. We get lots of so-so cases, and we get quite a few cases that we can immediately say, oh, we know what that was. Like, that was a rocket launcher. That was an airplane or something. But the good ones keep us going, and especially me. And that's what I like doing. I am theoretically the director of API, but I don't really like being the director. I would rather, I just want to do field investigations. So we are actively looking for someone, preferably a retired person, who has administrative skills and people skills and
Oh, do
Organizational
those go
skills.
together?
Uh,
Can you find a person like that?
somebody who can run an organization
Right, right,
and get us out of. We're basically, we're not incorporated or anything like that. We don't have a bank account. Uh, getting all that stuff together would be great, and also somebody good at recruiting and reaching out to the rest of the community. Uh, and I've tried to do that, and I'm not that great at it. I just want to be out. I want to be out in the field, tromping around, getting mud in my boots, and looking in the sky. That's what I love doing, and I'm not retired yet. So when I am, that's going to do a lot more of it. But uh, the that kind of thing is we would love to have somebody who would come in and say, okay, I'm going to take you from uh, this level of very low level of organization to the next level where we can do things like ask for money and work with um, other organizations in a organized way. Because what we want to do is we don't want to grow to being a huge investigation organization.
right.
I always tell people, if I don't know everybody that by a first name basis is in one of our field investigators, we're too big.
Right.
And so, but we would love to ally with other organizations. We did reach out to MUFON, and that did not work very well. This was several years ago, but the well, at first it did, but the local Maryland MUFON organization was very enthusiastic about working with us, but the national organization didn't want them to, and so that got cut off, very unfortunately. But because the local thing was working well, and then but other organizations that want to work with us and share their expertise, we'll share ours. If we can put boots on the ground where you can't, then we'll do that. Or likewise, if you do that, I need people who have medical expertise, psychological expertise, people who can help analyze evidence of various kinds. Don't have to join organization. We don't have dues anyway. You could join an organization for free and be part of two organizations, but the only thing is we have to have the same values in terms of treating witnesses with the highest ethical standards we can
Right.
we can treat them with, and really doing a good job gathering quality data and making sure that checking it and reviewing it and make sure it's right. And we have a peer review process in organization, very humble peer review process where every report gets gone over, and we'd like to have that be a broader thing with not just within our organization, but with lots of other people involved. I'd like to put a board together of technical advisors who would help us with that. No, they don't have any commitment or obligation. They're theoretically on the board of advisors, and they'll get data from time to time and we'll ask them, what do you think our analysis here is accurate? Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? How would you interpret this? And because a lot of times we end up not knowing how to interpret things. And sometimes it's because we lack the expertise, but more often it's just because there's not enough information, or because there's more than one way to interpret it. And the video I was showing you before we started is a good example. The video taken at face value is just freaky. It looks weird. But it was taken on a cheap cell phone, and you kind of wonder, maybe this is some defect in the phone, or the way it behaves when it's in low light or something like that. That maybe it takes great pictures in full daylight, but when you point it up at the sky, it starts to get weird. I don't know the answer to that question. It would be nice to have some expertise. So we'd love to have that kind of board. I've reached out a little bit for that. I have not got I've gotten lukewarm responses, because it involves people taking their time and not getting paid for it. And
Right, right.
so anytime you don't have money,
But
it's going to be hard to get enthusiastic response.
but yet, I mean, I can see, I mean, there are people here that are in chat that I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, these would be such amazing people to help out. I mean, the Sparky lady who was on my show a couple weeks ago, she has got so much knowledge and in aviation, and she's just I mean, she's a really wonderful person. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Aviation is one area where I am not an expert, and I've learned a little bit along the way just because I had to, but it would certainly help to have some aviation expertise, because we get a lot of cases that you wonder, what could that be a plane? It could be, maybe, but would the lights ever look like that? That sort of thing.
Right. And
And
and I've got to just tell you, if you, when you get time, watch the show that she was on, because she was talking about how she had seen some things in the sky. And then as she learned more about aviation and how things could, with haze and different things that could affect what a witness was viewing, then she could put that through the paces. And so it's like, I just think it's, I mean, she would, both of you have to hook up. I would love to have you
well,
guys
yeah, I mean,
speak.
it's also, somebody who knows about military aviation in particular, because we get occasionally get cases that are right next to a military operations area, and those lights can be very different from commercial aircraft lights, and people are seeing lights move around, and um, sometimes for that reason, we'll just say, well, we don't know what it was, but there might have been military aircraft in the area. They don't show up on Flight Radar 24, uh, or any of the other apps, because they turn those transmitters off when they're operating. Um, we get cases like that, and you know, also I think that it's just somebody who's been up in the sky quite a bit, seen the sky. I know the night sky pretty well because I'm an astronautical engineer. I know a lot of what should be up there, uh, and I just love going out and looking at the night sky for too. That I've always loved that. So I took graduate astronomy courses when in school. I really uh, like that kind of thing, but I'm not a pilot. So there's other things I don't know about. And yeah, we have lots of error. To give you an example, about 3 years ago, I think, maybe 4 years ago, we got an email, not a formal report, just an email from a guy in really broken English, and he was from Russia. And he said, basically trying to relay that my father had this thing in his head, and he saw, and he sent me what I think was a CAT scan, or maybe a PET scan. I'm not sure, because all the wording was in Russian. I got a partial translation of it. You could see that there was a human skull, and then there was some foreign object. But I have no medical expertise. And so I don't know, is that a weird thing? Could that be a defect in the scan? What could that be? Is that maybe something in the background, like the equipment they're using? I don't know. But it looked really weird. And then the guy claimed that his father had been abducted. And although we generally don't do abductions, if there's physical evidence, which I don't think it's ever happened before, we are quite happy to look at that. We tell people, look, we're not abduction researchers in terms of taking down stories, but we are happy to look at, if you've got some corroboration, you've got some independent witnesses, you've got some physical evidence, we're happy to look at that. and we will discover what facts we can about it. But this one, I was totally frustrated, not speaking Russian, not having any medical knowledge, not knowing what that scan should look like. Um, and the translation we had seemed to indicate that there was a foreign object there in the notes. Is that real or a hoax? I don't know. How do I tell? Right.
Right.
But so having being able to tap into a network of people who know have various levels of expertise would be great. And right now I haven't got that. I would love that. I think that we should have that for the whole field. There doesn't need to be one organization that controls everything. There needs to be a network of people who don't charge each other money and aren't doing it for a living, just doing it because as a labor of love. You can call it a hobby if you like, but it's more intense than that.
Right.
And so we have that need, I think, that's going missing right now. And I thought for a while there we might get it going, but so far, and this is where I fall short. I'm not good at putting those kinds of social networks together. If I had somebody who was good at that, Antonio Paris, who was our previous director, was very good at that. It was really his strength. That he had so much energy and personality. He'd be out there with people and he would find people. And he found me, but all I wanted to do was go out and investigate. And so we're doing that, and we've got some really good cases that I think need more review. The average everyday case, I don't think it's a challenge. Marcia and I and the rest of the team, we can usually resolve amongst ourselves what something is. Sometimes we have controversies internally. There was a case about a year ago where I thought it could be a drone, and Marcia didn't see how it could be a drone, and we went back and forth on that for quite a while. Drones really have been confounding UFO investigations now for several years, and they keep getting better. By better, I mean worse for us. Longer flight times, and
right,
and faster and more maneuverable. There are racing drones, and these guys can take the drone and put it right through a piece of playground equipment and underneath a park bench and then zip around they're really good at it. And it can look, and they're not that loud, so they can be quite close. You can't hear them, and you won't even know, it'll look really, really strange, especially the light. They can put different lights on them. And so it's, and they don't always fly where they're legal. Sometimes they fly where they're not legally supposed to. So, that can confound it as well.
Well, and I just have to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, we have just, there was a news story in the Salt Lake Tribune saying that Walmart now, and also one of our big medical centers, is going to be using drone technology to deliver prescriptions and items for people. So now all of a sudden, here we go. We've got all of this stuff taking place. And so there's just one more layer to us trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think I have a complete handle on that, frankly. I went out and bought a drone myself. I've been playing with it. I've actually now have 2 drones. I probably end up getting 3 before very long. They're kind of fun. I've done experiments photographing them and taking video of them from different distances and so forth. The drone is, there's some things it can't do. There's some things it's not supposed to do, like fly over 400 feet, unless it's right up against a tower or a building. There's places it's not supposed to fly, but people fly them anyway. So I had a case I interviewed this week. I don't know if it's a drone for sure, but it was flying very near a restricted zone at China Lake. Not really in the restricted zone, but right. Well, it could have been in it. We can't be sure. Um, but it was moving fast and it was silent, um, which drones typically do look like that, especially. And so I'm still looking into that one. It's really kind of a weird one, but it might have very well been over the restricted zone, and it might not have even. It might not just be somebody flying for fun. It might be somebody who really wants to see what's going on in China Lake, um, with bright lights on. I don't know, but we get cases like that a lot, and so somebody who's a drone pilot could be very helpful to us consulting. Could you make a drone do that? You know, could you make it look like that sort of thing? And the answer is usually yes, you can. Yeah,
Right.
because they're getting more versatile and longer range. So, but we have. Um, let me if you like, I can talk some of the better cases we've had,
Yes. And let me know
including.
when you want me to add you to the stream with some of the
What?
videos.
Yeah, well, I could share some videos, but I the first one I'd like to talk about, probably, I don't, the video is too long.
Okay.
It's really long. I don't think I want to, people can go on. That's one I mentioned earlier, 12-058. This was one of our first cases. And the guy is really interesting. He's a bright young man, um, very honest, open with us. We could tell when we first interviewed him, he got really emotional and he was trembling when he started talking about some of his experiences. Either he's a first class actor or he's really, really got some emotion about this. So that's why we think he's telling us what he remembers, right? Well, this is a case where, and this guy had a lot of experiences to relay, including UFO sightings. But the most interesting thing that he said, told us, was that he woke up one morning in Ocean City, which is on the shore of Maryland, the Atlantic shore. And he was staying with his family, and there were several other people in the house. And he he found this little splinter of metal in his arm. And he just pulled it out. It wasn't in there deeply, and there was a little bit of blood, but he pulled it out, and it was sort of omega shaped. It was like the Greek letter omega, the capital Omega, and it was maybe 2 centimeters long. He thought it was very odd that it should be in his arm, and how did he get there? And he didn't have an explanation. He showed it to several people in his family, so we know it was real. Some of these folks don't want to encourage him, so they're not going to say something was real unless it was, especially his father, who was very concerned that his son might have some mental issues. I don't think I'm not qualified to say whether they did or not, but he put this, he thought, this is a try, I've got to get it analyzed. So he put it in a little polystyrene bag, a Ziploc. Mm-hmm. And he carried it around with him all day. And at the end of the day, he took it and he put it, as was his habit, he took his hat off, and then he put his keys in his wallet, and he put the bag in his hat. So everything was in his hat. And the next morning he woke up and the keys in the wallet, the hat was there, but the polystyrene bag, the little Ziploc bag, like a snack bag, had a little hole in it in the corner, and the device and that little piece of metal was gone. And when he told us that, we said, we got to get that bag and look at it. So I spent hours looking at that Ziploc bag under a small microscope, trying to figure out what had happened to it. And I tried I got a bunch of other little snack bags of a very similar design, and I started making holes in them different ways. None of them looked like that hole. And the only way I I came close was by taking some solder, which is this hot molten metal that melts at a fairly low temperature, about 200 degrees Celsius. And you, this is used in electronics all the time. Solder just it melts and then it flows and then it bonds a wire to a circuit board or bonds a wire to another wire. It's really useful stuff. So I had some sitting around, and I said, well, I'm going to take this bag and hold it up between a couple of alligator clips, and I'm going to take the solder and drop it into the bag so it hits it fast, and it's also hasn't cooled off much before it hits. And that's the closest I got to duplicating the damage. And it was heat of some kind. And other things like cutting, tearing, ripping didn't come close. So while this is not conclusive, it does seem to corroborate his story that the thing just disappeared. That it would have been hard for him to generate that kind of damage on the, if he was hoaxing us. And also, you just get to know the guy. That's not him. But hoaxers can be different kinds of people, so you always have to keep that in mind. But so it was corroborative evidence that the thing had really disappeared, and we don't know what happened to it. He gave us a sketch of it. We never took a photo, but the hole, by the way, was the size that he described the object being. But that was, and our video goes into detail on that case.
And can you just tell everyone, excuse me, really quickly, but where can people find the video and where can people listen to the podcast?
Okay. Well, it's actually all on our website.
Okay.
But it's hard to spell. But if you go to, here's an easy one to spell, reportaufo.org. You go to that. That takes you to our reporting form, but it's also our website. And there's a bunch of tabs along the top. And if you click on podcast, you get to the podcast. You click on investigations, you get our investigation reports. You click on video, you get links to our videos. We're also on YouTube as API Case Files.
Great, thank you.
And also on Twitter, you go to API Case Files. And, I'm usually the one that would respond to that, those any queries on Twitter. It's not my personal Twitter, but it's I'm usually the one that's behind that. And I if anybody wants to communicate with us and they don't want to go to reportaufo.org and file a sighting report. Not everybody wants a sighting report. We are on Proton Mail, which is an encrypted mail service. reportaufo@protonmail.com. And we'll take any kind of query there. We also, if at our website, we have a little contact us tab, you can go to that. And so just remember reportaufo.org and you get the whole website. Okay. And it's basically a blog type of website, but we have static pages as well for the podcast and so on.
And it's a beautiful website.
Yeah, well, I just picked a WordPress theme that looks sweet.
Dang. Okay. I mean, that is really sweet. I mean, the videos that you have, everything that you've done is so incredibly professional, and I was so excited to get on there and look at it. It's like this is what we've needed.
Yeah, I should point out that Marcia does a lot of our videos, our case summary videos. She's done most of those. I've done 2 or 3. But we have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, and some of them are training videos that are kind of dry. Others are witness submitted videos where we'll just take the witness clip and then we'll enhance it and slow it down or zoom in, something like that. We'll give you both. You can see that a lot of times you look at the clip, you can't see anything. But I spent hours with it, zooming in, slowing it down, enhancing it till I could see what it was the witness saw, going through frame by frame. And so we get you get that benefit of those hours of labor that so you don't have to spend those hours. You can just see right away what it was the witness saw. Sometimes it's pretty strange. Other times it's not, and other times you may say, well, this is just a little flickering light up in the sky. And what did I do? Am I still there?
You are. Yep.
Oh, for some reason my login screen came up.
Oh, I think it was for the video stream when we add the video.
Okay. Well, no, that was just me being clumsy. Yeah. Now, let me. I can show you. I want to show you. I just talked about one of the weird cases.
Yeah.
And if you look at that video, it's 12-058 058. You'll see an interview with the witness with his face blurred out, and you can see he's a very reasonable young man. Nothing. He's not like some loon who's just telling you all his delusions. And he tells you a straightforward story. And then I come on and talk about my analysis of the baggie. So I would consider that to be physical evidence of physical evidence, but not quite physical evidence. But that's as close as we've come in these kinds of cases. We have never had this kind of high strangeness case where there was direct physical evidence of what happened to the witness. Like we don't have that little omega shaped wire. That's but still, that gives you a sense of the struggle that you go through with these kinds of cases. It's more about the process than about what we found. I'd love to find something like that someday, but it may never happen. But now the next one, this is a video case. This happened last year in Colorado, near Pueblo, Colorado. There's a reservoir there that is a popular camping site, and it is just south of a big military reservation.
Mm-hmm.
But they were looking. They weren't looking north at the military reservation. They were looking to the southeast for the most part when they took the video. But they were out there camping, and yes, there were helicopters zipping around 10, 20 kilometers north of them. You could see them on Flight Radar 24. Some kind of training exercise going on. But there was they were there, and these two guys just camping out, just two buddies hanging out. They had to get up for work tomorrow, the next day. It was a Thursday, but they ended up staying up to 2 or 3 in the morning to watch this thing. And what they saw was like a net over the sky. They saw the sky, and it was lights moving around and shooting out beams. And it was just really crazy.
Can we show that? Can you do the screen share again?
Let me see.
Because that is a really interesting video.
Okay, let me see if yes. I'm going to start. I don't know if I want to start back all the way at the beginning. Well, why not? Well, it's just the beginning. I showed the original clip, and it doesn't look like much.
And so I think we need to get you on there to do the screen share. So we need to add you again. So.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Have I got it?
There we go.
Okay. Well, the original clip doesn't look like much. Now you can hear the music they're listening to, and you can hear the wind noise. And you see just little lights flipping around the sky. I've got this on my second monitor. And now here's some enhancement, and you can see these beams shooting out. It's really wild. And it looks like there's multiple lights there. I don't know if you have a big monitor, you might want to blow it as far as you can. But this video is on our YouTube channel as well. It's case what is it? Case 21021-021. And now we're slow motion showing the beams. You can see these red and blue things shooting out of these lights. Are those real? I don't know. I I I, I always take a skeptical bent and say anything what's on video is just pixels on a screen until you show it's otherwise. Uh, but I've never seen anything like that before. I would love to get an expert on this kind of on what kind of defects you can get in a camera sensor, like a CMOS sensor.
Right, and that's interesting. And I wanted to say, because I went to your website and saw the video, and what we're seeing here now definitely is, I mean, it's hard to differentiate the beams that were coming out. So definitely go to the
Yeah.
website and look at the video.
Yeah. Well, I've got this is the enhanced version, uh, and then I zoom in on the lower object. You can see there's actually there's this thing, and it looks like there's a second one, and maybe a third one up there. And when I saw this video and I enhanced it and blew it up, I freaked out. This was the strangest video ever. This is the witness sketch here. You can see it's a pretty good sketch, triangle shapes. And in addition to this, he also, much later in the evening, after this light show had gone on for some time, he saw a cylindrical submarine shape. He called it like a submarine shaped or object coming down from the sky very slowly, landing on the lake, or maybe just above the lake, and then slowly moving across the lake out of sight. And it was like a green object, self-luminous. Now, he didn't have any video of that, and I asked him why he didn't. He felt, and in one of our podcast episodes, we do have his voice talking about this. He felt kind of like this was not really meant to be a public event. That he felt that it was for him and his friends' benefit to a certain extent. It was kind of almost private. He felt like he was committing a violation by taking video. So that's why we just have the one short clip. Is that what he really felt? Well, I'll have to reach some conclusion eventually.
And so
of course, I can't read people's minds, but
right. And so you said that this was by a military base?
It's well, Pueblo is not very far from Colorado Springs, where there's it's just south of Colorado Springs, there's a whole lot of military stuff up there. I've worked at one of those bases before, but there's also a big area where they train special forces, and that's all written. It's all on the map. You can see it. They train Air Force Academy cadets at that local airport, the Pueblo Airport.
Interesting. And I wanted to say that I'm looking at chat, and people are having a problem connecting to your website. And so I'm not sure what's happening there, but hopefully, I mean, I was on there earlier. So
let's see. Well, while I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to go, if you go to report a UFO.org and you spell it right, unlike what I just did. Yeah. No, that's not. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, it comes up. It's a little bit slow.
Okay.
Probably because of the bandwidth I'm using for this sort of thing right now. But let's see. Yeah, you get the sighting report form. If you don't want to file a sighting report, there's all these tabs across the top: home, report a sighting, witness fact, about API, investigations, case file, podcast, videos, resources, contact us. Yeah, so that works. If you go to reportaufo.com, I don't know what you get. It's got to be .org.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that, because I know people are excited and they want to get in there and see that. And I've got a couple people in chat saying that they've seen a similar thing to that, and that they were perhaps drones that have laser capability?
Well, a laser, you can't see the laser beam unless it's like green. And even then you won't see it that strongly. Now, if it was just a light, like a spotlight, yeah. Um, but this went on for hours, according
Interesting.
to the witness. I don't think they were drones. The, I mean, you can get, military drones can stay up for hours, but they're kind of loud. They tend to be kind of loud. You can hear the audio in this video. There's no aircraft sounds at all. You can hear the music in the background. You can hear the wind. So I'm, by the way, if anybody has any questions at all, I'm happy to answer them now or later. Again, you can go to report a UFO at protonmail.com. Proton Mail is a encrypted service, and we never give out anybody's personal information, even if they're not reporting a UFO to us. So you're safe if you have a question. And if you look at our investigation reports, you'll see lines that say redacted, like, because that was the look. Like, for example, it said GPS coordinates will be obfuscated. You only see like one decimal point, one digit decimal point, instead of right at the exact location, because we don't want to give away where somebody lives or where they work,
Right.
or any place that's closely associated with them. It's not just their name and email and telephone number that we redact. We redact anything that might be used to identify you, your occupation in some cases. Like if you're the only optometrist in a small town in Oregon, and you say optometrist is my occupation, we're going to redact that, because you might be the only one, and then people could use that to figure out where you are.
And I love that. And I think, I mean, to me, it's, like, you've got a video about ethics and about the way people you expect to behave in the organization for the integrity of the organization. And I think that's really important to have that. And in a lot of different cases, we don't have that integrity. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, there have been some famous problems. Well, you had Jack Brewer on not long ago. He's documented some of those. And also in cases, the high strangeness cases, I don't know if I want to say abduction, because I don't know that all those people have been abducted, but there's been a lot of unethical treatment of those people for fame and fortune. And simply obscuring their name in a book is nowhere near what you need to do. You need to take into account that they have memories, and those memories are them. And if you mess with those memories, you're messing with them. And we also have situations where people come to us and it's pretty clear. Now, we're not psychiatrists. We don't know what their problem is, but it's pretty clear that there's a risk that we would make things worse if we conducted an investigation and have them tell us their story. So we won't go ahead with those kinds of situations. It's more important to take into account the witness's well-being than it is to get the investigation done. And so we might be missing something, but we don't think it's worth the risk. And we would never sell your case file, or Mr. Bigelow might call me up and say, here's $1 million. Can I have Erica's case file? And I will say, no, not for $2 million.
Wow.
Because we just don't do that at all. And if Erica wants to give you her case file, I'll give it to her and she can give it to you. And I'm sure she'd be happy to have the $2 million, but
not from him.
And but that's, we won't do that. And and also when people contact us about reality shows, UFO we will always say, look, we're not going to give away any personal information about our witnesses.
Right.
We will contact them, and if they want to contact you, we'll give them your contact. We'll give them your phone number, and then they can be on the show if they want to be.
Right.
But we're not going to impose that on them. And so that's, it's really common sense. It's really not anything. It's a series of do's and don'ts, and because that's how you have to break it down for field investigators to understand what it is we're trying to do. And what we want is people. We see the stigma all the time. People are afraid to come forward because they feel it's a career limiting move if they're found out, or they think their friends will make fun of them, or their family will think fun of them. It's just they'd be ashamed to admit that they saw something that in the sky they didn't understand. Hopefully someday that stigma will be gone, but it's still very much there. And so let's say you're the only doctor in your small town, and then people find out you've been reporting UFOs. I think I'll go to the next town for my doctor. It could be really a problem for them.
Right. Right.
So we want to remove that stigma by assuring people that that their information is not going out, and we will redact whatever we have to redact to make sure that you can't be identified, and including things like your occupation or where you were at this time of the sighting, or anything that needs to be redacted. And we want to put as much information as we can in, because we want to share this information with the community. We wish everyone did this, especially those that get a very large number of reports. We don't get, it's rare that we get 100 reports in a year, probably more like 50. We've had 200, I think, in one year. But the important thing is that we want to have a lot of facts in the report that are pretty much the same facts for every case within reason, and then we want those facts to be available to everyone who's interested in. And we also give an evaluation of the case quality and the case strangeness. That is, you can quickly look up, okay, I only want cases that are case quality of at least 2 and strangeness of at least 2, and then that filters out a large number, and then you can then do the research, and we'll give you the location. We'll give you, it may be obfuscated, but we'll give you close to the location, and we'll give you as many details as we can about the objects that were seen and so on. And anybody can go to our website, click on the investigations tab, and see the reports that we have out. And I encourage people to do that, because we're happy to reopen a case if you have more information about the case. And that doesn't happen often, but we'd love to do that. And while we're investigating the case, we often would sort of let the case sit for a bit, hoping that someone will come forward who has some corroborating information. And we're doing that right now. We have a really interesting case in West Virginia that was last January. A married couple, early in the morning, it was dark outside. We're driving across a bridge over the new river in West Virginia, which is this beautiful scenic river in West Virginia. And he was driving her to work. And as they came up on the near side of the bridge, they saw a large triangular object floating over the river. They both report that they saw this. And they actually backed up. They went partway across the bridge. The object kind of just floated down over the water and out of sight. And they had shortly after they got over the bridge and the object was gone, they made a 911 call, and we did confirm that the 911 call with the county. We confirmed that, and we have recording of it. And there was another car. You could see it in the photos they took and the videos. There was another vehicle just in front of them. This person or persons should have seen pretty much what they saw. And we can't find that person. We can't identify them. We don't have a license plate or anything like that. So they didn't make a 911 call. So that's the kind of information we could really use because a married couple will tend to support each other. It's not fully independent corroboration. It is some corroboration, but not fully independent. So and they were very excited. The guy, and we have the 911 call. So, we do tend to believe that he saw what he thinks he saw, or at least he thinks he saw a big triangle of the river. Did he? Well, that's something we want to figure out. But more corroboration in that case would be really, really helpful. So that's the kind of thing that we do a lot. We'll let it sit for a while and look for other people who might have seen the same thing. Because a lot of cases you come up and you go, why didn't more people report this? There must have been. Now, in these cases, there was probably it was very early in the morning. There's probably only the other person in the vehicle and possibly some residents along the river. Marcia actually went down there and she knocked on doors along the river.
Good for her.
Sometimes nobody answered the door, but the folks that did say they hadn't seen anything. But because you can see the lights of the houses in one of the still photographs that the wife took. The object itself is way down. You can't even see it. Not even sure it's really there. But that's the kind of thing we do a lot. That's a good case. It's not the best case we've ever had, but it's a good case. Sometimes you get a single witness case where the witness is just awesome. They make all kinds of sketches and notes, and you figure this is a really good case, but we only have one witness. He or she could just be making it up. I have the impression in most of these cases that they weren't making it up, but I could be wrong. Yeah. So corroboration is very, very important, and multiple witnesses are very, very important, and videos and photos are really important. And we've even come to the point now where we now always ask the witness if they didn't take a video or photo, why they didn't. Because we think that's an important research question. Because the one thing you hear a lot is people say, well, now there's so many cell phones out there. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket. Why don't we have clear videos of UFOs? There could be a lot of reasons for that. I don't think it's that. It's not a slam dunk that just proves that there are no UFOs. But we don't really know the answer, and so we're trying to ask our witnesses, and we'd like to see other organizations do the same thing. If you didn't take a picture, if you didn't take a video, why didn't you? And if you stopped taking video, why did you stop? If you stopped taking stills, why did you stop? And we're going to collect this data and see if we can learn something about that. In a lot of the cases, it has nothing to do with the fact that they couldn't get a good shot. It's because they were either scared or they were transfixed or some other, psychological, emotional reason why they didn't take a shot. But in other cases, they just say, my cell phone's not that great. I'm not going to get a good shot.
Which to me would be like, I videotape everything, It's like I see something strange. I've got my camera out. I'm videotaping
Hmm.
and things, and so yeah, that is interesting. And I want to go back because I love watching the videos that you've done talking about your investigative process and how important that is. And at first when you've got a person that is investigating in interviewing a witness, I mean, the most important thing there is to make sure that you are not interjecting until that witness is done with their statement.
That's right. Yeah. Well, um, we always start our interviews with, greetings and how are you? Let's and we'll say, okay, you reported a sighting on this date, this time. Tell me everything you remember about it. And then we just shut up and let them talk. And only after they have told that, and I'll say, anything you want to add? Sometimes they add something. Okay, then I ask my questions. And I ask the questions in the same context, the context of what they just told me. Okay. Then if there are photos or videos, I may have questions about that. Um, we have to try to get all the data that we can, but we want them to tell their story, even though they've already given us a report. We want them to tell their story end to end, everything they remember. And we also strongly encourage witnesses right after the sighting, like 5 seconds after it's over, grab a piece of paper and a pencil or magic marker, whatever you got handy, and make a sketch
Right.
and write down on the sketch everything you remember. Put on the sketch all the objects that were in the field of view, not just this flying saucer or whatever it was, but trees, water towers, buildings, whatever, and make as many sketches as you need to show the complexities of what you observed. And then there is research that indicates that helps you remember better when you make a sketch of something right after, especially when it's a fresh memory. And there's a lot of discussion about how eyewitness testimony isn't worth anything. We don't completely accept that point of view. We think eyewitness testimony, if it's fresh memories, is worth something. It's not necessarily definitive. You can't take it all at face value, but it's important to have it. And now, if somebody's telling you something they remember from their childhood, 20 years ago, it's probably at that point, it's no better than a story. In fact, it probably has. We all have false memories. We all remember things inaccurately from our childhood, and even what we had for breakfast yesterday. Some of us won't even be able to tell you that, right? Memory is a tricky thing. It's not a tape in your head that you can just play back. It's reconstructed every time, and every time you tell a story, the story may change. So getting that fresh memory down on paper, ASAP, and then after you've done that, then either give us a call or go to our website. Now, you'll notice if you go to reportaufo.org, you will note it's a pretty simple form. It doesn't have a lot of details on it. There's a space there where you can tell us anything you want. Any details that you think are interesting. But in the investigation, the follow-up, that's when we're going to get all the details. We just want to get the basically what happened, what did you see, and when did you see it, where, the essential facts that we can use to start our investigation. And the sooner we get that, the better. If we get that, within an hour, it's rare, but it's happened. If we get it within a day, that's pretty good. If we get it a month later, it's starting to deteriorate. Your memory's starting to fade. And we want to get that eyewitness testimony as soon as possible. If you've got videos or photos, we want those. We want them unaltered, untouched by software. Don't worry about pointing something out in the photo or the video. We can do that. We have a lot of experience at it. So we're happy to take that information. If there's anything in the photo or video that is personally identifying, we won't share that with the public. Like if your voice is on it, you don't want them to hear your voice, we'll suppress the audio. Um, and then we go through a process where we just go out and find facts. Right? Were there planes in the area? Were there high altitude balloons in the area? Were there satellites, and what was the weather like? How all these very boring, dry details that are essential to a good investigation. And this is where we lose some field investigators, because they don't like looking up the weather and 3 months ago.
Well,
It's
then good riddance.
it's so boring,
Yeah.
or they don't want to know. They don't want to go to liveatc.net and sit there for a long time
Yes.
listening
Thank you. Been there,
listening
done
to
that.
well, this is another thing where an aviation expert is great, because they understand what's being said
Right.
on the radio there. And if you're not an aviation expert, a lot of it's going to sound like gibberish to you.
And I
But
just want to say thank you, Scott, for the donation, and thank all of you for the donations this evening. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I mean, I had a great case here at an American Airlines flight 434 coming over Nephi, Utah, and we had to go through, an eyewitness or a person that was scanning radio frequencies. We went through ATC, that website, and listened, and we were able to identify the aircraft, and then from that point on, we could do a FOIA request and get radar data, audio data, all of this stuff. And so that was a really good case, but it's not exactly like glamour. It's not glamorous to do that, but that's the important stuff. So if you're not willing to get in there and do that, then
it's
what's
sweat
the
and
point?
shoe leather. It's
Right.
not, but that's what you got to do a good investigation. Um, Sometimes it's easy, because it's an easily identifiable thing. Like we had a case in the UK. We get a lot of UK cases for some reason. I'm happy to have them, but I don't know why we get so many. But the uh, the gentleman took a video of a white, almost tic tac looking thing going across the sky, very smoothly, slowly. Went onto Flight Radar 24, identified it was a really big cargo aircraft. So it was really, it looks, when it's sort of, the wings are kind of edge onto you, you can't see the wings very well at all. It just looks like a big funny cylinder, and this was miles away, so it wasn't very clear at all. And so that case was done in an hour. We just had to email them and say, was it moving from which way was it moving? Okay, it was moving the way the aircraft was moving. Identified. But most of them are much harder than that. And a lot of times we'll come up with what we call a low strangeness unidentified. That is what some people call them. I call the low information zone. It doesn't do anything particularly weird or strange, but we can't identify it because we don't have enough information. We don't think it's a commercial aircraft, or it's not moving in the wind, that sort of thing. And lately we've been getting a lot of these little tiny flickering lights, very rapidly flickering, very small, almost like 1 pixel, sometimes just a few pixels, in a video. And we've got a lot of those cases. We don't know what they are. We suspect they're some kind of high altitude balloon with a reflector or something, but sometimes the reflections are so fast. They're like a 30th of a second or faster, really, really fast. They're for 1 frame or 2 frames, that I can't really figure out what could cause that. But it's not particularly weird. It's just, I can't figure it out. Somebody else probably could. So I've actually did a presentation on that one. Said all these little flickering lights, we're seeing them. We didn't used to see them. Now we're getting a lot of them. Anybody know what they are? And don't think they're drones. They could be drones, but we had a case in Vietnam. Our first and only Vietnam case. This was from what they now call Ho Chi Minh City, which used to be Saigon. a gentleman. Some people retire there from Europe and even the U.S. and um, Australia. They go there to retire because it's cheap to live there. And uh, this guy was, he was Western, and he had a video of this erratically flickering red light uh, over some high-rise buildings in Ho Chi Minh City. I looked at it. I go, and he explained to me that drones are illegal in Ho Chi Minh City, and I looked at it and I told him, well, after a lot of frame by frame looking at it and determining that the flickering of the light was erratic, it wasn't periodic, it wasn't pulsing, and it was very rapid. I said, I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to call it unidentified, but I don't think you're justified in concluding that it's alien visitation either. It's a lowest range, just unidentified. We have catalogs of those. Now, the hope is that if you get enough of them, somebody will figure out what they are as a class of thing, and then we'll be able to move on from there. But I would like to say something about, when we say something is unidentified and we say it's a high case quality and we say it's got some strangeness to it. Mm-hmm. More than, and our definition of that is there's more than one thing about the behavior or the appearance of the object that is puzzling. In the case of the Vietnam one, there were two things that were puzzling. The one was that drones aren't supposed to be there, and the second thing is that the light was flickering very erratically, very not rhythmically at all, and so it could be a lot of things. But so that's a little strange, but it's not highly strange. But there's a lot of talk about aliens and extraterrestrials, and I kind of, my own view of this is what I hope is kind of nuanced. I don't deny that there could be alien visitation. I think it's, in fact, you talk to Seth Shostak, he'll tell you it is possible. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows what the probability is of that. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, that's so improbable that," but we don't really know how improbable it is. And in fact, some people would argue that we should have seen it by now, because eventually somebody's going to develop interstellar travel, and they'll eventually reach all the solar systems in the galaxy. I don't know if that's true or not, but the problem with assigning extraterrestrial to an explanation is that to do that, you've got to know something about extraterrestrial intelligence. Right. And I think we know less than nothing. We know Hollywood, we know TV, we know science fiction. We don't know anything about ETIs, if they exist. And my own suspicion is they do exist somewhere. They might exist here. I'm not going to give up looking for that. There's it's not just UFO investigation. There's also something called SETI, which isn't just necessarily looking at distant stars. You can also look for artifacts, in your own solar system that couldn't have possibly been put there by people, but are still technological in nature. We haven't found anything like that. And people are looking, but so far nothing. But since we don't have any idea what an ETI is, and from just thinking about it, it could be stranger than strange. It could be so strange that we'd have no idea. That we really can't put that forward as an explanation.
Right. And I've got to ask you now, because, you've got people that are saying, oh, no, wait, we were just kidding. It's not coming from, an outer space vehicle, but now it's interdimensional, or, so you've got people that are kind of changing the narrative. And I'm specifically thinking about the people at the Skinwalker Ranch who've gone from, A to B to C to, whatever they're doing. And again, nothing has been verified, and you're putting out things that I
Well,
think are
I
questionable.
really see very little difference in saying I explain this by extraterrestrial intelligence. That is, and all they can say about that is that they're not human and they're not from here, which is nearly the entire universe is not human and not from here, right? Uh, Even on our own planet, most of us are not human, right? There's so and that is exactly the same as so-called interdimensional, which is a very fuzzy notion. By the way, even much fuzzier than ETI. At least we know there are planets on other stars, around other stars that or there could potentially be life there. Whether it be technological life, nobody knows. But or anything else, um, I think interdimensional is really it's just relabeling ET something a little more exotic, but it doesn't really it doesn't carry any more weight with me. And it doesn't explain anything because we don't. If you can if you have an explanation that can explain anything, then it explains nothing. You have to be able to say, here's how it could be wrong. And if you can't do that because you don't know anything about it, and let's face it, this interdimensional thing, it's really just a science fiction trope. Uh, I'm a fan of Doctor Who. I've seen all that stuff. It's all entertaining, but we don't. It's no more than speculation. So now, if we did go to Mars, for example, landed on Mars, and now there's human technology on Mars now, laying around in different places. Not much of it, but a little bit. If we went to Mars and we looked in a cave and there was some kind of machine in there that clearly wasn't human, that would be proof that at some point Mars had been visited by someone that wasn't human and not from Earth. That would be awesome. I think we'd all find that. And there's not a single scientist, by the way, who would not love that. Well, maybe there are some. there's a one in every crowd, but the people like Seth Shostak or would love that. They would eat that up with a spoon. But they can't. There used to be this old theological argument called the God of the gaps, right? People would say, okay, well, we can explain this or that about the world, but we can't explain things like the origin of life or whatever. And so that's where God comes in. And theologians have abandoned that argument, by the way, by and large, because the gaps kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We understood more and more of the universe, more and more where things came from, and less need for a mystical explanation. This took generations of very, very hard work. This was not easy at all. Sometimes hundreds of years to get to even the first order explanation. But this kind of thing, the God of the gaps argument has been abandoned because God get getting smaller because the gaps get getting smaller, and we needed less and less gap filling. We still have gaps, but I think they've given up. So, but we now get aliens of the gaps, or poltergeists of the gaps, or anything that we haven't figured out yet. If we throw an alien in there, it's explained, but that's not an explanation. That's just giving up, basically. So, while I believe that there is a really good chance that the Earth has been visited, and I have seen some things that blew my mind. I talked about it in Martin Willis's podcast, but several years ago. But I don't say that I saw an alien spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was. I just don't know. It's a gap. It's an unexplained gap in my understanding of the world I live in. And I think we should all take that kind of humility around with us whenever we do this kind of work, that there's a lot of stuff we don't know. Um, we may just have a failure of imagination in some cases, and uh, if we are being visited by, or have been visited, or will be visited in the future by ETIs, and there may be different ETIs, they may be the same, who knows. Um, I think that will eventually make itself plain with enough work and enough diligence. If they, if they are way smarter than us, maybe they don't want us to know they're there. Then we may not have a chance. But and I wrote about that a few years ago. That if we're playing an epistemological chess game with somebody who's a grandmaster, we're not going to win that game. So anyway, that's kind of where I think my thinking on that. I respect people who believe in ETs, but I think we don't have very much information.
Right.
We also respect people who believe they've been abducted, but we think in many cases they haven't been. But
and I've got to ask you too, because I just, like for me, that's kind of raised red flags for a multitude of reasons, because you've got people who are experiencing things and then they're turning to the UFO community, and the UFO community is pushing people on them that can do hypnosis. That I mean, in my opinion, these people are leading a witness who is potentially fragile, and so that to me is a huge ethical
even
problem.
Jacques Vallée has come out and said it's unethical to lead people to have memories that they didn't have before. And now he said, well, maybe we have to use professional hypnotists or something like that. But I really don't think we learned the hard way back in the 80s and 90s from the Satanic Panic that memory regression doesn't work very well at all. Sometimes it does, but for the most part, the memories that are recovered are extremely unreliable, and in many cases just false memories. And the damage that did in the Satanic Panic was horrible. Families, people went to prison, falsely accused. Families were broken up forever. Lives were ruined. And, I agree with you that there's been a lot of very unethical hypnotic regression and so forth with people who report an experience that they don't understand. To me, the best kind of experiencer is one that doesn't have an interpretation, or at least not a final answer to what happened to them.
Right.
They just say, this is what I remember. This is what happened to me. And, I think those people, I've met a few of them and I think just need help, but for the most part, they are telling the truth as they understand it, and they are not crazy. And
thank you. And I mean, but when they get to, and I've talked about this on so many of my shows, because I mean, the more I look into this, the more I go, oh my Lord, I was at a conference, and literally anybody that had any type of unusual experience was going to an early morning meeting where they were going to meditate, and they were going to be told that they were star seeds and chosen individuals. And it was just like this brainwashing and this cult-like programming. And I mean, the more I look at that, I just think this is really, really wrong. And if anybody's had an experience like that, please don't turn to the UFO community for answers, because you will get even more messed up than you were when you initially had that experience.
Yeah, I think that while we are happy to listen to their story,
right,
there's usually zero corroborating evidence. The case I told you about earlier was the only one that even came close to that I know of. We've had some really, really weird stories told to us. Sometimes with corroboration between husband and wife, but with yellow flags popping up all over the place as well. So what we do is we'll listen to the story, but then if we can't corroborate it, we can't corroborate it. If there's no facts that we can find, then maybe we've done our job just by listening. and letting them talk. And the and so that's why most of the time we won't take an abduction case if people are already interpreting that they've been abducted by aliens. If that's their interpretation, well, okay, maybe there are other possibilities. Uh, and I've had a sleep paralysis uh, episode, just one, where I was very convinced there was a little person in the room with me who was wearing something like a spacesuit. And when I woke up, I said, well, why did I go back to sleep if it was if that was such a traumatic thing? And because it was in the moment, it was quite terrifying. And then I read about there's this very well documented phenomenon called sleep paralysis that does affect a lot of people. Some people have it frequently. I just had it that one time. Other people, I've talked to a lot of people who've had it once or twice. It can be absolutely horrifying. And if you have that, and then you go to the UFO community and they want to hypnotize you, what started as just a very simple psychological phenomenon becomes a lifestyle. And in some cases, there's a lot of money that changes hands. And, there's cult-like thing. And so, yeah, that whole scene has to be avoided.
Right. And thank you. And I want to say that it's not that, like, for me, I mean, I have friends that have had experiences that they feel are very real and very traumatic. And I'm not trying to discount what they have seen or experienced, but I will say from my point of view, looking now at some of the people involved, and even with the MUFON ERT, to see that, these people are really good, wonderful human beings that are trying to help people, but they're unfortunately, they're leading people to say, okay, this was a gray, this was, this benevolent space brother. And that is really dangerous and unethical, in my
Yes.
opinion. And if people are having traumatic experiences and you're creating a support system, you don't do it with hypnotherapists that are involved anywhere in the UFO community. That's just
I wouldn't do it
not
with
good.
hypnotherapists at all. I think that that might be a good way to quit smoking or something, but I'm very skeptical that any answers you get from that will be helpful, and it could be damaging. So we always say, we're not therapists, we're not psychiatrists. We won't ever do anything that comes close to pretending that we are. And that's kind of where it stops for us. I do think I agree that our people have had high strangeness experiences, and we don't know why. And it's not all sleep paralysis. I agree. Before anybody tells me that, it's not all sleep paralysis.
Right.
Yeah, I believe you. It's not all sleep paralysis. We have a lot of waking experiences that are middle of the day, haven't been in bed for hours, and these people have very strange experiences, which are very difficult. Which I don't know how to interpret that. I think that's probably an area of research that I'm not really well suited for. I'm much better at looking at videos and measuring angles and trying to figure out how big something was or how far away. But and I love that kind of work. But yeah, we've had some people that come to us with these things, and we've had like you said, most cases these folks are normal people. They're not nutcases. They run businesses. They raise children. They do all kinds of complete things that require high functioning, and they do it just fine. So I'm stuck there. I don't know what to do, but I agree with you that people have these kinds of experiences, probably better off avoiding ufology. Don't go to the conferences.
I would absolutely encourage that. In fact, I was, I mean, I've been at a couple conferences, and I was very what I've seen, and I'm just going to share this because I think this is very important. But there are there is a group of people that monitor social media, and they monitor a specific area, and they find people that are thinking that they're having experiences, and then they coddle and create relationships with these people, and then get them to I mean, and they indoctrinate them, in my opinion. Oh, yes, you had a paranormal experience. Yes, you've got spiritual abilities. And yes, we've got this piece of equipment that we're going to put into your bedroom and into your house, and that's going to collect data. And then lo and behold, you've got to pay for a website to access that information. And it's just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, this is something that it's always bugged me. I know there are people who claim to be serial abductees, and in their case, it should be easy to verify that with monitoring surveillance. Um, and it's never been done to my knowledge. It's just like people who say they can summon UFOs, at
What, you
will.
can't? Are you kidding? You just ruined my whole weekend.
Well, I maybe know some people who can, but the people that are out there with YouTube channels that say they can do it, I go, well, this should be so easy to verify. I'll bring my gear out to your site. You summon a UFO, and we'll see what you get. And nobody's ever taken me up on that. They don't even want 8x binoculars out there because it's balloons and flares and stuff like that. If you really can do it, do it. Prove it. It should be easy to verify that. So things that are easy to verify, I'm all, let's do it. Let's get the low hanging fruit. It's not there. But yeah, we have to. Marcia and I are very strongly in agreement, and the rest of the team, that if we get a abduction case in, it's usually just a matter of listening to the story and then closing the case. We can't help them. If they are really suffering mentally, emotional anguish, we will try to get them some professional help, which is we obviously cannot supply. But we may be able to recommend somebody. There's a guy named Brian Sharpless who's a very fine psychologist and wrote a book on sleep paralysis. And I approached him after a talk and I asked him, where can we send people where they won't get the woo-woo treatment? And he said, any PhD psychologist probably is going to be well-trained and know what to do. They're going to charge you good money, more than a social worker, but you will at least get an objective evaluation of your issue. So he's, I think that was good advice. And if you had these strange experiences and you're suffering for it, you feel traumatized, you should go to a professional to help you. If you don't feel traumatized, well, we'd be happy to listen to your story. If you just want to tell your story, or you can just create a website and tell your story that way, but you don't really need to because you're fine, right? So, but my experience has been that some of these folks do have experiences they find frightening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to use the word traumatizing, but they're scared
Right.
of what's going to happen next, and they think it's going to happen again.
Right.
And I cannot help them. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I can, if they have facts, I'll collect the facts.
And so let me ask you, because Amy Collins just wanted to ask a question, like what equipment, if somebody suspects that they are potentially being abducted, what type of equipment could they put in their surroundings to verify that?
Oh, well, I haven't thought a great deal about that, but it should be fairly easy to just put some motion sensors or maybe under your bed, so that if you're coming off the bed, that a switch. I don't know where to buy one of these, but I could probably make one, and the and that would turn on a video camera. And you can get video cameras these days quite cheaply that do infrared, low or very low light, so that you don't have to worry about the fact that it's dark in the room. And so if you're on the bed and then you're not on the bed, that's you can't be abducted unless they take you off the bed, right? So that's how I would do it. You could put a switch in there. I think that would detect. I mean, that kind of detector is very common these days. We all have them in our trackpads. When you push the trackpad, it senses that you're pushing down. Then you release it, since you're releasing it. So it should be easy to get.
Okay, and I've got to ask you because Angels, our life wants to know what about Faraday cages with equipment inside it?
Well, a Faraday cage is a cage. You can have holes in it, small holes, but I don't know that would. I mean, like around a camera, maybe you could put it, but I don't know that's necessary. If you're worried that there's going to be some kind of interference with the camera, then yeah, you could easily build a Faraday cage out of ordinary materials. Aluminum works really well. I would think that you could just do this basic thing, just detecting that you were on the bed and then you weren't on the bed when you didn't expect to be. I even had there are Apple Watches can detect how well you're sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're awake and asleep, and you could, and there's other watches that do the same thing. Lots of different manufacturers make them, and they'll give you in the morning. You open up your app and you get a chart of, when you were awake, when you were asleep, and you can see from that I sleep through this whole thing, or but did something happen to me in the meantime, or did I move? My phone detects how many steps I take every day. I just carry my phone in my pocket. It tells me how many steps I took. So the technology is fantastic. You should be able to do it pretty easily without spending a lot of money. Now, me, I would hook up a video camera and with an infrared, some kind of infrared detector, and try to get really great images. But if you just want to know, was I on the bed all night from the time I went to bed to the time I woke up, then you can get that answer. And from there, you can ask yourself, okay, at some point I was not on the bed for an hour. That wouldn't be explained by sleepwalking. It might, maybe I was taken somewhere. That would be a reasonable hypothesis. And then you could go from there. But I wouldn't use elaborate equipment to figure that out. I think it's too simple.
And I wouldn't use equipment that other people are manufacturing and selling it to you and then pulling your data in.
No, I would not do that. It's probably not that good, and it probably I doubt they're getting any data that is really helpful. But I know MUFON did an experiment like this many years ago with a serial
monitoring.
Yes,
project.
with a serial abductee. I think just one person, as I recall correctly, and the data was never shared with the community. And if you're just sitting there taking video all night, you can do that. And modern cameras can do that. It wouldn't be your phone. It would be, a real camera hooked up to the power. But then you got to sit there and go through the whole thing all night and fast forward and see if at any time you were missing from the bed. You could do that.
But and then you would always have somebody say that, well, they're so advanced that you could be there, but then your soul.
Yeah, the aliens are doing deep fakes, and
so yeah, it's always
well, let's face it. If there's somebody who's got super advanced technology, you will not know, and they're super aware and smart. You won't know anything they don't want you to know.
Right.
Okay. And you can always invoke that and say, okay, well, aliens are the gaps. Reason we don't know this is because they don't want us to. And it's not completely unreasonable, but you can devise something very simple that would, you know, that for example, well, I could think of lots of things, but you can maybe have some, like a tether on your pajamas that connects to something and pulls it away if they take.
Okay, sorry. I could just picture me doing something like that. That would be
Yeah.
disastrous.
Well, yeah, but
But right.
To my knowledge, nobody's found anything like that, and it shouldn't be that hard. Now, not everybody's a serial abductee. Some people say they're only abducted like once or twice, and then they don't know if it's going to happen again. I suspect strongly the serial abductees are mostly having sleep paralysis incidents. I don't know that for a fact, but that would be my first hypothesis. And that's a little hard. That there is equipment that can detect that, but it's more intrusive, not easy to sleep with. If you've ever done a sleep study, as I have,
Yes, I have too.
that it's crazy. How am I supposed to sleep with all this stuff sticking out of my head? But I think it's an interesting question.
It is, and I have to have you back because we're getting, we're running out of time, and this has been so fascinating. And I want to ask you because Peter Shadowy Spectrums wants me to ask you your insights on the video of the MIBs in the hotel lobby.
That's one I have watched hundreds of times. I can't get a lot of information on it. The only thing we're sure of, okay, is that two guys walked into the hotel. They were tall-ish. Can't be exactly sure how tall they were, but they looked very similar to each other, and they're dressed almost exactly identically. They both had fedoras on, so they look like the classic MIB. We have some testimony, some witness that they came in and were asking questions and were scary. They frightened some people. But the video itself, you can't learn a whole lot from other than just two guys. I mean, could it be a prank? Yes, it could be a prank. It started with one of the hotel managers reporting a black triangle sighting over Niagara Falls, or near Niagara Falls. And now lots of people do that every day. People report seeing black triangle. We've got several cases in our files besides that one. And then he reports that they were coming. He was out that day, and they come in. They were looking for him. Mm-hmm. They want to know where he was. We have even more like secondhand hearsay that they were driving a weird car, but I wouldn't take that to the bank. That's like somebody told me that somebody told me sort of thing.
Right.
And that kind of information deteriorates very rapidly on the first or second telling. So it's a really interesting case at face value.
But it's almost like kind of a bit of theater, like what you see at Skinwalker Ranch. It's like, oh, here you've got this place, and we're going to give you information, and then we're going to show you a couple of videos, and this could potentially be mysterious, and so.
Well, we felt very good about getting that video. That was Marcia was the main person behind that.
Wow.
We felt really good about getting the video. That was further than we expected to get.
That is so cool. So you originally got that video. Yeah.
Well, we asked the witness, can you go to the security guy and see if he's got the video? And he didn't. And because that's the first thing you ask anything.
Right.
When I have a sighting in a urban area, a suburban area, I'm looking around for security cams and doorbell cams. And some you almost never get anything, but sometimes there's hope that you'll pick up a flash of light or something in one of the security cams. Usually those things get erased the next day or within a week, so you got to go fast. And but the that's the kind of thing that we were just really happy to have that video. It did corroborate what he said to some extent. That there were these two guys and they were weird looking, but
Yes,
the
they were.
video is very poor quality, and we apparently the quality it's highly compressed by the system so that the file size is small, because this was back several years ago when they didn't have big hard drives for these things. And so we had to we had that, but I wish I could give you a more definitive interpretation. But there are many possible interpretations, including hoax or prank. Keep in mind that hoax isn't any good unless it's really convincing. And hoaxers really want their hoaxes to be, they want you to think that they're going through more trouble than the hoax is worth. And they are. They're going through a lot of trouble to make it look real and sound real. And seem real. Maybe somebody recruited two tall twins from Outer Jabip, Ontario, and dressed them up like that just for fun.
Well, I mean, I could say, having been involved with some of the Skinwalker Ranch antics, I would say that people go to great lengths to promote stuff.
Well, there's people that do this for a living and they're called magicians. And they can fool you so easily, but actually it's not easy at all. They work extremely hard to get to that illusion, but it's all behind the scenes. You can't see any of it. And so you say, that's impossible. That's ridiculous. How could that happen? But I'm a fan of the Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and they have like 14-year-old magicians coming on all the time that can fool anybody, with their trick. And they certainly can fool me. So keep in mind that, that deception is always a possibility. And that's why I keep saying at face value, because a lot of these things that we have can't be taken at face value. Even if the witness is sincere, their perceptions can be wrong. Their memories can be wrong. And even their videos can be wrong. So, just keep that in mind. It's not easy getting from a raw report to an investigated case with a case quality and strangeness ranking and identified or unidentified. That is not easy. And that information is a lot more valuable than a raw report. In fact, I don't think raw reports are worth much value at all by themselves, except that they lead to the investigation. So
I love it. I mean, and like, I just have to say, I want you and Marsha to come back.
Marsha is good to talk to. She and I don't agree on everything. We agree to disagree on some things, but my worldview is different from hers. She's a little more, well, I'll let her tell you what her worldview is. I don't want to speak for her, but it's very different from mine. I subscribe to what people call naturalism, which is that everything is natural. There's no supernatural. And the reason I say that is because every supernatural explanation we've ever had has been replaced by almost every supernatural explanation, and probably all has been replaced by a scientific one in the natural world, and the reverse has never happened. So that's my worldview and my at least working hypothesis that everything's natural. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I've yet to see any evidence to the contrary. The I don't think that's Marsha's view necessarily. She has a different perspective. Um, and you can get her ideas if you listen to the API conversations where she's talking to some of these folks. She has, her own way of looking at it. So, yeah, she's different perspective than me. She works really hard on the cases. She does a good job. She's better at interviewing witnesses than I am. She tends to win their trust better.
Interesting. Well, I would love to have both of you. I mean,
Yeah.
together. That would be a lot of fun just to hear
Yeah.
different perspectives. And I just listening to her. Like I said earlier, she's just brilliant at interviewing people, and her voice, her delivery is just spectacular.
Yeah, she has. She tends to get their trust better. I don't know what I do. Sometimes I'm doing something wrong, and I may be alienating the witness a little bit, and I don't even know it because I'm not naturally good at that. She is, and so but we both have had witnesses that have ghosted us after the interview. That's actually a pretty common thing to happen. The witness will say, "Okay, I told my story. I'm out of here."
Right. Yes.
Stop answering emails. Stop. They won't reply to anything. So,
and I've just got a question here, and I just want to say, thanks Scott and Peter and Rodan and Simon and everybody that has been here tonight and donated to the show and gets in here and asks thoughtful questions. And you are on Twitter, but you're doing your Twitter from the API.
Well, API case files. I'm usually the person behind that account. I would actually like to find somebody to help me with that, but right now it's mostly solo. I have my own Twitter is Paul D. Carr, Pauld Carr, Carr. That's mostly about music and my kids and
that's cool.
Food or whatever else. I have, like I said, I have a low interest threshold. I get involved in everything, science, astronomy, whatever. And of course, I'm a space professional, so I quite often post about what's going on in space. So that account may not interest your audience quite as much, but API case files is very focused on API case files. And also we will look at videos and photos that people post and try to understand them better. Sometimes we mostly have questions like, where was this taken or so forth. We generally avoid the UFO Twitter drama altogether. That not very interesting to me personally. The fanboyism or the hating, I don't want to do either one. I think I wrote somewhere, neither a fanboy nor a hater be, and that's my motto on Twitter.
I love that. I love it. That's a great motto. And so again, okay, tell everybody the website to go to.
Okay. If you go to reportaufo.org, you will land at a site that has a URL that's difficult to spell. So just remember reportaufo.org, not .com. And that will land you at the reporting form, but there's a bunch of tabs there. You can go anywhere. You can even apply to be an API field investigator at that site. We get those applications pretty often. We're very careful about who we pick because we've had problems in the past. But the investigations are there, the videos are there, everything's there. We have a YouTube channel that you can get a link to from that. If you just go to the videos page, it gives you a link to the YouTube channel, a bunch of different playlists. And you can always email report a UFO at protonmail.com, and I will answer that mail hopefully within a day or so. And we also have a hotline number that I can't remember what it is right now, but it's on our website. You can call our hotline number if you need to report something right away. And I will usually be the one picking up that phone. Um, and yeah, we'd love to hear from people. We're also willing to take critiques on our investigations. People who don't agree with our results. Um, we're all for civil exchange of views, even if they don't agree with us. And you know, we we also would love to hear anything people have to say about our videos or our podcasts. And if you have questions that you want us to answer on the podcast, we'll be happy to do that.
I
So,
love that. And thank you. I mean, I just you are so professional and thoughtful and putting it out there, and I think that's a breath of fresh air, and that's exactly what I have needed to find. So thank you for being here and having such a wonderful discussion
well, thank you. And
tonight.
yeah, we only got to like 10% of the stuff that I could talk
I know.
about. But
Well, then we've got part 2, 3,
yeah, well,
4.
yeah, yeah, well, we'd be happy to come back. And I don't know if you can coordinate both me and Marcia at the same time, but
Okay,
if you can, we can do that too.
that'd be
Um,
great.
and we have other people. I always, I always believe in talking to the quiet people, like I said, and talking to the people who are um, not big self promoters. And
I
Marcia's
agree.
not a big self promoter, but she'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay, that would be lovely. And I've got everybody's like part 2. Yes, bring you back. So fantastic guest. So thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Yeah, you
And I
too.
look forward to having you back.
Yeah, well, I look forward to coming back and answering a ton of questions, or at least failing to answer a ton of questions. Um,
Thank you.
thank you.
Absolutely. Happy 4th of July.
You too.
And thanks, you guys. And I want to just say thank you very, very, very much. As always, you guys, I love hanging out with you every Friday night. I've got some great shows coming up. I will have Paul back because he just really, that it makes me happy to know that there is somebody that is that grounded and thoughtful and actually wants to explore this in a productive, positive way and things. So I look forward to that. I want to thank Mario for working behind the scenes and Peter for helping me promote things on social media. I need you guys to help me promote things on social media because I need some help. But thank you for supporting the show. I want to thank all of my Patreons and all of the people from all over the world who stay up late at night. You guys rock. I love you, and I will catch you next Friday.